Let us begin. So we're starting a forward bending practice week, and I wanted to dedicate the week to taking more support and maybe finding a different relationship with this family of poses that sometimes can feel really overwhelming. Some of us avoid forward bends for various reasons. So making them more friendly and accessible and hopefully quieting, which is the whole purpose of these poses, is to quiet the mind. I always call this week the mini restorative week because forward bends are they can be very soothing to the brain. So we're going to start with the dominant cross-legged position, whatever that is for you, and then take some time to find your supported and aligned seated position, taking care to support the knees or hips if you need. And then take some time to arrive with your chest lifted and spread, your shoulders in line with your hips, sensing your sitting bones really evenly anchored into the floor through the props if you're using props. And then without disturbing that pose, join your hands in front of your heart and close your eyes and just point your gaze away from your brain toward your cheeks. Taking on that witness state of mind as you observe your breath, as you become more aware of sensation. Maybe here setting an intention for this practice, maybe extending that intention out to this day, this week, this month. And see if you can keep your chest lifted as you bow toward your heart. Releasing your hands. And as you're ready, inhaling, lifting your head, letting your eyes come gently open. I have lost my singing bowl stick, but I see it, so we'll save it for the end of class. Just pretend you heard the singing bowl. We're starting. We're going to come into child's pose, and the support we're going to take for this pose is going to be, if you need it, a connector between your butt and your heels. And that could be something larger than a blanket, like a bolster. It could be a series of blankets. You're also going to have your blocks to support your hands, to elevate your hands. And then some head support, but making sure you leave the nose space free and clear so you're not pushing your nose into something, that you're able to breathe. So the pose will look like this. So take some time to set that up. And when you do place your head, try to arrange the neck so that it's long. You're not feeling a crease. You're not feeling like you're extending your neck. The neck should kind of be chin closer to chest position, so the neck is really nice and open. You could think about it as no crease in your neck. Remember, this is a single curve from the brainstem to the tailbone. And hopefully your blocks are on your sticky mat. And you can try to kind of scrub your hands on the mat so that your shoulders move back, your chest moves forward. And with the contact of your butt and your feet, maybe through the prop, really try to draw the sitting bones back toward the heels. Keep the tailbone pointing toward the floor. Try to get the arms more straight if you can. I think that's maybe Katie. And of course, if you need to modify, you need to modify, but one day, someday, working toward a straighter arm. Letting the breath come into the back body. And sensing your arms as extensions of the sides of the trunk. Take the next 3 exhales and just see if you can draw your toenails into the floor. You can move your sitting bones any amount farther back. Just feeling really anchored in the back end of this pose so that you can feel really extended in the front end. And on an in-breath, you can find your way up to hands and knees. We'll transition to a supported downward dog. So we're going to place the blocks where the feet will go. The blocks will be elevating the heels. And so you want to have your toes tucked under right in front of the blocks. And make sure your blocks are on your mat so they're not going to slide away from you, that they have the traction of the sticky mat. And from hands and knees, exhale into the knees lifting, but you're not going to straighten the knees just yet. Make sure the heels are sitting down on the blocks and bend your knees and just take the first 5 or so breaths, drawing your chest toward your thighs. Remember the action of the arms from child's pose and try to find that here. See if you can bring a little additional weight to your index fingers and your thumbs. And then with the intention of your chest and shoulders not coming forward, see what happens when you try to extend your legs. And maybe that's too much and you can go back to a bent knee. Maybe you can stay kind of somewhere in between. But the pose is quite different when we have support under the heels, whether it's the floor, which we eventually get to. We practice for a long time and get really deep in this pose. But when we don't come to the floor and the heels just float, we don't have as much support. So this can give us a lot of support in this pose. Just stay another few breaths if you can. And if you need to leave, you're going to just tiptoe into a standing forward bend like a rag doll. Otherwise, see if you can stay 3 more exhalations. And now you're going to carefully start to walk in, so your feet come toward your hands. And come onto your feet fully. And then help yourself come up to the standing position. Okay, so I'm going to have everybody find their chair. We just did one version of a supported downward dog. The chair or wall provides another great version, although I'm not going to teach the wall because we don't all have wall space in our home studios. So the chair seat is going to be your anchor for your hands. And you're going to walk back until your torso is angled, but your legs should remain vertical. And this version takes a lot of the effort out of the upper body. The first version takes effort out of kind of the lower body. So I think it's Katie, sorry to keep calling you out, but get your legs more underneath you. So your legs should be upright. Yeah, and then yes, there you go. Your feet are generously spaced with your toes in front of your heels, and you're drawing your hips away from your wrists. As you can see, my shoulders are starting to dip below the line of my wrists and hips, which is how the pose starts to develop. A lot of us, as we begin the pose, have more of a peak at the shoulders. Eventually, it's going to become a valley. So keep dipping the chest toward the floor, sinking the shoulder blades in, and scrubbing on that chair a little bit so that the shoulders move back and the breastbone moves forward. Let your head just kind of bow. And if you need to bend the knees, bend the knees. Again, try to keep some weight in your index fingers and your thumbs and lift the inner upper arms up toward the ceiling. Finding those counter spirals in the upper and lower arms. So the lower arms work in one direction and the upper arms work in the other. Now we're going to transition through plank position and back to this position. So inhale forward. You may need to adjust your feet back and then drop the hips in line with the shoulders and heels. So you should be straight like a stick from your shoulders to your heels. Your shoulders stacked above the wrists. Tailbone moving into the body, so we're not doing a little poking up butt. We don't want to do a mini dog. We just want to be in a plank line. That looks good. Now pull back to downward dog. You're going to do this a few times. You have to step your feet back under you. Lengthen the hips back. On an in-breath, again, transition to this chair plank. Make sure your legs are firm. Your tailbone moves in. You're extending through the crown of the head. Excuse me. And we'll do it one more time. Dog, chair dog. Draw the hips away from the shoulders away from the wrists. And then one more time, plank position. Inhale, float forward, pick up the heels. Good. And now you're going to walk yourself in closer to the chair. We'll come into a chair version of Uttanasana, forward bend. You might cross your arms and rest your head on your arms. You might take your head, crown of the head to the chair seat. It kind of depends on your mobility. It also depends on the height of your chair seat. But build height up to meet your head if your head doesn't touch directly. Keeping still the feet hip distance, the toes in line with the heels. Keeping the legs firm. And balancing your feet. So you know if you're in your heels, if the weight is all in your heels, your butt is too far back. You know if you're all in your toes, your hips are too far forward. So your feet really do tell you if you're in alignment. Balance your feet. And with the head down and supported, we can get quieter. And when we get quieter, the body's more willing to relax. So we can go deeper. We'll be here a full minute. And we talked about it before, but if you don't know how many breaths you breathe per minute on average, it's nice to kind of know that. So when you want to stay in a pose for a minute, you can count those breaths. We have about 3 or 4 more here. And go ahead and help yourself lift your head from whatever you're propping it with. Come onto your hands, help your feet in, and then stand yourself up. Stepping into standing mountain Tadasana. So place your feet together if you can, join the legs. Make sure your second toes and your heels are in line with each other. Your shoulders are floating above the hips. And start with your palms turning forward to really get the external rotation of the shoulders that we want. Here's where we play with those contrasting arm rotations. So keeping the upper arm as it is, see if you can turn the palms to face the thighs without losing the shoulder rotation. Tailbone in, your gaze is down to your cheeks. And you're compacting your buttocks toward the front body and your thighs toward the back body. Keep a line of energy from the chin up to the base of the skull to ensure the skull stays above the spine. And let your feet take on some connection with the floor rather than feeling like you stop where the floor begins. See if you can relax your feet into the floor like there's little roots coming out of them. Good. And now let's open the eyes. And we're actually going to sit in the chair just for a little bit. Have your 2 blocks nearby. We're going to do chair pose from a chair, but we're going to see if we can leave the chair. So the idea is that chair pose one day, someday, your thighs are level with the floor. Of course, you're not sitting on an actual chair in the classical pose, but we're going to kind of feel that depth, if we can, for a moment. So you can join your feet, join your legs, sit forward and just kind of hold the edge of the chair seat. Sit forward as at the least angle you can. So don't go way forward onto your lap, just kind of angle forward so that you can step into your feet. Okay, step into your feet strongly. Lift your pelvic floor, that little contraction that we know to kind of shuttle the energy up the spine. And then extend your arms up by your ears. And then stepping strongly into the feet, can you leave the chair without losing the thigh bone position? Yeah, good. I saw some of you launch. Even if you can't, what counts is the effort. Good. Come back to sitting. And now just kind of refresh your legs. You can bounce them or do what you need to do. But again, the idea is that we don't come sitting forward and then go way up. We're going to try to really not change the thigh position as much as we can, or as little as we can. You know what I mean? So try to stabilize exactly. So we're going to try it one more time. First, just kind of get yourself ready. Step into your feet, angle forward. Lift your pelvic floor. Extend your arms. And then stepping into the feet well. See if you can float off the chair. You might just kind of lose a little contact, but still have your butt in the chair. That's okay. And then come to sitting. Feet can come kind of forward, and you're going to come into a chair version of child, connecting your chest and thighs, and bowing your head. So your legs are joined in the chair version of child's pose. Bow your head. Okay, chair version of twisting. You can either turn your chair or turn your body. I'm going to turn my chair so I can keep facing you. We want to have the high part of the chair to the right, or in other words, you're kind of sitting off to the right side of your chair. Okay. So for most of us, part of the butt is kind of hanging off the chair. That's okay. It's not really going to affect what we're doing. We're just going to use the chair to help us twist. So you're going to turn toward the high part of the chair. With one hand, you're kind of pulling toward yourself. With the other, you're pushing away. And this will help you equalize the chest to start to turn more level to the right. And we know that our twists kind of favor the lower spine. So instead of kind of exploiting that, embrace your lower abdominal muscles to kind of stabilize down there, because what we don't want to do is rotate the pelvis or shift something we didn't want to shift. So engage your corset, your lower abdominals, and really see if you can bring your twist into your upper spine. And twists are always where it shows up if we ate or drank anything in the last 2 hours. So you might have some irps and burps coming out. And then you're going to look over your right shoulder for the last 5 breaths. Maybe close your eyes. And if your knees are pulling to the right, pull your knees gently to the left. So it's interesting when we use poses or props, you can sometimes go deeper in your poses. Inhale, you can come out of it. Then when you don't use them, and there's kind of this belief around props that they baby our poses or they're like crutches. But I really find in many of the prop intensive poses that I can go deeper than I would otherwise. So hopefully you're feeling that too. We're going to try the other side. So again, you can turn your chair, turn your body. Your feet are just in line with your heels are in line with your knees. Turn to the left and just one hand pulling back, one hand pushing. Gently kind of gather the lower abdominals like you have particle board down there, gathering in all directions to stabilize so that we can get the mobility higher in the spine. And when you sense you're near the neck, then just kind of turn and complete the twist for 5 breaths, just holding it there. Every exhale, coax the twist along. Every inhale, lengthen your spine. If you remember from past classes, twisting and lateral movement really helps us go into deeper forward extension, which we're about to do. So inhale, lengthen out of that twist. And now we are going to come back to sitting in the chair, the way the chairs were designed to be sat in. And now we're going to kind of connect those movements, forward bending and twisting. So you're sitting in your chair, your feet are together, they could be slightly apart. We're going to raise the left arm and then turn to the right and see if you can bring your left hand either onto the right seat of the chair or the right chair leg. Your left hand is on the high part of the chair, and you're going to use your arms to help you turn to the right. Try to bring the left side ribs around out of the shadows. If you're holding the chair leg, you might prefer an underhanded position, which will help you get a little more clearance on the shoulder to roll back, the inner upper arm to kind of pull forward. But then connect the dots of tailbone and crown. So you're lengthening with every in-breath through the crown. Keep rolling the right shoulder back. Two more breaths. On the in-breath, you're just going to kind of help yourself to chair child's pose again. So just resting your chest on your thighs, your arms become empty coat sleeves, your head hangs like a bowling ball from your spine. And because we have the knees joined, we're pushing breath into the back body. So use that to really feel a fullness of space, of breath coming into the back body. And then you'll help yourself come up to seated, upright with the torso. We'll prepare for second side, raising the right arm. And as you turn to the left, you're going to drop the arm outside the left leg. You're either going to grab the leg of the chair or the seat of the chair if the leg is too far away. Underhanded maybe with the right hand. That hand on the top part of the chair is pushing to help you roll the shoulder back. And every time you inhale, imagine a strong diagonal line of energy from your tailbone out through the top of the head, extending your spine and rotating the spine at the same time. Three more breaths. So we know that our poses are really always about space finding. So you can come out of it and come back to child. One way that you can kind of analyze yourself in your poses is just kind of scanning to see where you feel congested or small, where you feel less open. And when you can kind of identify these places in the pose, you can really start to clean up the pose and find more space. We're taking some really compact poses, which is why I wanted to bring that up. So now find your 2 blocks And you'll put them a little bit wider than hip distance. Your heels will be in line with your knees. And you can work with either the low or the medium height of the block. I don't recommend the high angle or aspect of the block because it's too wobbly. Otherwise, it would be perfect if you have deep hip mobility. And we want our toes forward. We don't want our toes angled. Make sure your toes are running in line with your heels. So we're gonna do just kind of some work on a really kind of challenging pose, Parjvo, which is an arm balance, but this is a really accessible way to start to learn the shape of the pose and the mechanics of the pose. We're not gonna be arm balancing today. So make sure you have the feet propped. You're gonna start just by kind of sitting forward and see if you can touch the floor. And then notice how the knees like to angle out. You're gonna clamp the knees in a little bit around the shoulders. And when you do eventually learn the arm balance, this clamping of your knees to your shoulders is key. So that's the first thing I wanted to kind of have you feel or experience is squeezing the knees to the shoulders. If you're able to, you can start to walk your hands back. Okay, so eventually you're gonna be anchored into your hands and your hands are behind your heels. So don't worry about that today. I'm just telling you, if you have somewhere to go, that's where you're gonna go. Hands behind your heels. So just to explain this to you while you're doing this, if you are in the full arm balance, you would be anchored into your hands are holding you up. You would not have feet, blocked up feet, you would not have a chair under your butt, and your ankles would be crossed in front of your arms, right? Yeah, I saw a few heads pop up. But today we're just kind of teaching these kind of primary pieces of this Parjvo. Okay, and meanwhile, the chest is still reaching forward. You're not collapsed. Your chest is still reaching forward. Good. In Parjvo, you're looking forward, not down. So you might try that. Good. Awesome. Okay. Now walk your hands forward. And just to kind of stretch out, walk your hands as far forward as they go, kind of like you're in downward dog, and then bow your head. And then you're going to help yourself come up with your torso and down with your feet. And we're going to use the chair now for Parjvo Tanasana. So you can come up to standing and you're going to have the higher part of the chair facing you. And we'll be taking the right foot forward, left foot back. Remember, in this pose, your feet are not on a balance beam, so you have hip distance between your feet. Even more if you need it to clear the rotation of the hips so we can square the hips. You're going to rest either your hands or your outer wrists on your chair. And then you're going to move your head to kind of float right between your arms. We tend to kind of bunch up the side body of whatever leg is forward. So in this case, the right side body. So you might feel like you have a little bit of a letter C shape in your spine. So find a way to roll your outer right hip back to try to create evenness to both sides of the torso. So they have matching lengths from hip crest to armpits. One way you can do this is to try to clamp the feet together, scrubbing the right foot back and scrubbing the left foot forward. Make sure you're not hyperextended in your right knee, so squeezing your right thigh. If you were to grab the right knee, it's not going to wobble around on you. Good, we're going to come into left side. So step into your right foot, step the left foot forward, transition to taking the right foot back. 60 to 80 degree angle on that back foot. So in other words, you're not like the Egyptian pictures we see where the toes are forward. Slight toe turn out with the right toes. Good. Position your arms. You want the wrist shoulder distance if your chair allows. Once your head starts to kind of sink down to the space between the arms, roll the outer left hip back. Maybe if you're able to, clamp the feet toward each other. Firm your left leg. And now imagine your lower back and think about it being really level. So it could hold a little teacup right in the center. The teacup wouldn't roll off to one side. And then see if you can kind of pull your wrists toward your shoulders to help your chest move forward. Good. Now look forward, step into your left foot, step your right foot forward, and turn your chair around. We're going to go deeper. That was the flat back or concave lumbar position. Now we're going to go into the full forward bend. And if you know your head will come down, but you don't want to have your head resting on cold metal, if that's the case, then put something down so that you can have a comfortable head material. And the right foot's going to be forward. Remember in this pose, the chest, the breastbone should be aligning with the forward leg. So you're going to kind of help yourself turn. You might position the chair really evenly around or above the right foot. Come from that concave position first, hands on the chair. And then keeping as much length as you can, try to find a way to get your head to touch down. It could be your forehead, it could be your crown. It's really about what's more soothing. And with a little more passivity in the upper body here, you should be able to kind of engage the legs to do that action of kind of clamping together, which in turn helps you steer the trunk to the right. Even if the left heel isn't all the way down, what counts is directing it toward the floor. So the effort of moving toward the floor, even if it's not on the floor. Five more breaths. Lift the head, place your hands on the chair, step into your right foot, bring the left foot forward, step the right foot back. You might move the chair a little bit to the left. So it's evenly placed around the left foot, above the left foot. Start from your concave lumbar position. Try to roll the outer left hip back, even sides of your trunk. And then bow toward the chair, keeping as much space as you can, as much evenness as you can, and place your head. So again, that idea of scanning for little congested areas or places of a closed fist. Last two breaths. Good. Lifting your head, placing your hands, stepping into your left foot, bring the right foot forward, and bring yourself up to standing. Joining the legs and feet. Coming into mountain pose. Just putting the low back in neutral. Really taking the tailbone in toward the front body. Think about your pelvic bowl really level. So if it was full of liquid, it's not going to spill out the front or the back. Make it level, whatever that is for you. Some of us hyperextend the lower back, in which case the front pelvis dips too low. Some of us don't extend enough and the lower back dips too low. So try to find your perfect balance. And then as you're ready, you can open your eyes. We're going to do a few seated poses now. Keep the chair available because we're going to use it for the head. But create enough height underneath you that you can, when you're sitting on one or two blankets, you feel your lower back is really upright, even concave, just not rounded or looking like the letter C. So we're going to have the chair kind of just sitting over the feet and the seat is facing you. And the first pose we're going to do is Marichyasana. We're going to use the twisting aspect of that pose first so that we can go into a deeper forward bend. So before we get going, just make sure the flesh is kind of pulled out from underneath the sitting bones. You can also take your hands and individually roll your inner thighs down and your outer thighs up. It kind of makes the same adjustment of the sitting bone flesh. We're going to keep our feet hip distance today for a little bit more sense of space in the abdomen and in the sacrum. So take both hands under your right knee and bring the heel to wherever it goes that you don't round out your lower back. So if you bring your heel all the way in, you might notice you just compromised your lower back. So bring your heel wherever it goes to maintain your perch right on top of your sitting bones. If you don't know what's happening with your lower back, your sitting bones will tell you. You want to be on the center points of the sitting bones. Take your right hand to your left hand to your right shin, and then take your right hand behind you. And if you need a little height under there, you can put a block because you don't want to lean back. You want to keep your spine really upright. So we're turning toward the right leg. You're going to try to bring some weight back to your right buttock. If it feels like it's floating off the floor, bring some weight back. And if you sense you can go deeper, you can lift that left arm and take the outer arm against the right thigh. Otherwise, you're still holding the shin. So every time you exhale, wring it out, go deeper. Good. And now inhale, lifting that left arm up. We're going to turn to the other side now. Raise the right arm. And on an exhale, drop the arm inside the right knee. And now you're turning to the left. You can prop the left hand on that same block or put it right behind you if you don't need the block. Turning really well here. Anchor into your left leg. So kind of similar to that deep twist we did in the chair, you're going to try to keep the amount of twist you have going right now. And you're going to take your right hand and see if you can grab the inner left foot. If not, grab a strap and make the connection that way. If you did grab your foot directly, take your left hand now to the outer left foot. And either holding the strap or holding your foot directly, you're going to pull to bring the chest forward. Remember the idea of clamping your knee to your shoulder. We want to do that here. And now last but not least, the head comes down. Try to scrub the left heel toward the left hip so that you cascade the torso forward. It's all momentum. It's a big wave here. Big wave. So if we can pull on that foot, the shoulders go back, the breastbone comes forward, the torso elongates out across that left leg. If you didn't have the head support, you'd be limited with how deep you can go. So really take advantage of that quietness that comes with that support. See if you can stay 5 or 6 more breaths. And gently make your way up. You can let go of the foot. Extend your right leg. Give your legs a little bit of a bounce or a shake. Make sure they feel refreshed. And now we're gonna draw the left heel close, but again, stay on top of your sitting bone. So don't go under your tailbone. Take the heel only as close as you can maintain that sitting bone perch. So first we're gonna grab that left shin with right hand. Left hand comes around behind us, and we're gonna start to turn to the left. And again, you might be able to lift the right arm and take the outer arm to the top left thigh for a little bit of a deeper hold. But no matter what you're doing, anchor into your right leg and stay over your sitting bones. Good. Inhale back to center. Raise the left arm and drop that arm, squeezing it against the knee, squeezing the knee against the arm. And the right hand is now directly behind you, centered behind you on the prop if you're using one. And you're going to turn well to the right. And now keeping as much of this deep twist as you can, see about extending your left arm and making contact with your right foot. If that's not happening, you're going to grab that strap again and take it underneath the right foot. If you're able to reach directly, you're going to also grab the outer foot with your right hand. So either way, you have the strap or your foot, you're going to pull. You're going to try to squeeze that left knee toward the shoulder. Don't let it flop out to the side. And then finally rest your head. See that your breastbone is pretty well aligning with your right leg. Bring some weightedness back to your lighter left buttock. And with the pulling action on the right foot, can you move that femur head into the hip socket and then propel or cascade the torso farther over the right leg? Good. Lift your head. Inhale yourself upright. Extend your left leg. Give your legs a little bit of a refresh. You can bounce them. You might massage them a little bit. I always find that Uttanasana feels really good after Marichyasana because we do a lot of hip adduction with Marichyasana. Uttanasana lets us kind of open the hip. So we counter what we just did. So we're going to do that before we conclude our seated forward bends. So we're going back to, with your legs extended, take 8 fingers behind your inner right knee. And not only is that a good place to hold just kind of functionally because it helps us pull back, but it loosens that cord enough that we're able to actually come in a little closer, the heel coming toward the upper inner thigh. The right knee is hopefully going to be eventually one day, someday, if not today, behind the line of the hip. But if you don't see that today, that's fine. Prop your right knee if it's floating in the air, so you have a good foundation. This bent knee side is your anchoring side. It really determines how far we can get in the forward bend over the left leg here. Make sure your chair is really kind of positioned well over that left shin. And if you know you go deeper here, you might not use the chair. You might come onto, say, another blanket. You might be able to use a block angled to your head. It's kind of where I am these days. So you have to kind of Goldilocks it so that you have what you need. We never want the props preventing us from going deeper if we can. So make sure you're finding your perfect edge. But before we fold over the leg, take your hands on either side of the left leg and turn your torso so that your breastbone is really straight aligned with the left leg. So there's a turning of the trunk from right to left. Inhale here, and on your exhale, lengthen forward, either placing your head on the chair or whatever other setup you've come up with. And then the arms, no matter what they're doing, should be passive. So I like to rest the backs of my hands here because for me that allows the shoulders to relax. If you're on your chair, you might cross your forearms. Keep extending out through the right knee. Keep turning gently to the left with the torso and keep finding depth. So if you can go lower, go lower. Just a couple more moments here. When you're ready, inhale, lift your head and come up. Standing up your right knee, extending your right leg. Do a little bit of a shake with your legs or refresh them. For side two, I just thought of this. I'm going to have us do a 1 minute hold. And so I'm going to set a clock or a stopwatch, but I want you to count your breaths so that you know how many breaths you take per minute. Just in general, it does change, of course, but it's nice to kind of know a baseline. So we're going to work with left knee bending. All 8 fingers come to the inner knee. Helps you soften. You're going to try to keep the knee low as you pull the heel in toward the upper inner thigh. Prop the knee as needed. And then use your fingertips to help you turn your chest to the right. You're also using your effort. When you take the fingers from the floor, you've got to maintain that gentle rotation of the trunk. Okay, anticipate what you're going to need to get the head to come down. Have that ready. Inhale here, and then exhale. Find your way into forward bend. So I'll let you know when I start the timer. It wasn't quite ready here. Okay, so start to count your breaths now. And you can stop counting your breaths here. We're going to inhale and come up. Just kind of remember that number. Standing your left knee up, extend your left leg. Before we come onto our backs, we're going to do Pashimotanasana, seated forward bend. And you're going to hold for, again, a minute. And this time, you're going to base that minute off of your breath count. So you're going to hold as many breaths as you know is your minute. So again, begin by just kind of making sure your sitting bones are really coming right down. You have to move the flesh maybe. We're going to keep the feet hip distance still. You're going to anticipate what you need for the head. This is a deep pose, so you might use a chair, whereas in Marichyasana you might have been using a block. So just kind of do a test run, see what you need. You can also work with the chair kind of farther away from you to get in deeper. So there's ways to work with the chair. It's not all one size fits all. Start by sitting up tall in Dandasana, firming your legs to the floor, and then extending forward and placing your head. Beginning your count. Adjusting lower as your body kind of gives you that signal. And you're going to come up whenever you get through your 1 minute of breath counts. And when you find yourself there, just give your legs a little shake. We are going to do a supported bridge to kind of neutralize the lower back from all this forward extension. So you'll just need a single block to work with. And you can work with the low plane of the block or the medium plane. But for today's purpose, I don't recommend the highest that you can go. We just want to have some support and elevation, but not going to our extreme back bend. So low or medium. It's going horizontally under the sacrum. And again, because today is not about the extreme back bend, you want your shins aligning upright. So you're not having your toes, your heels in as close as they can be to the sitting bones. Your heels should be right under your knees. Your toes should still be pointing forward. And then you're going to unfold your arms so that your palms face up. And your shoulders can sit down a little bit. So again, make sure your heels are in line with your knees. Some of you, I see your heels are really close to your buttocks. So just make sure you're not doing the extreme version of bridge pose. And really let the sacrum land on that supportive block. And then you're going to help yourself lift up high enough you can move the block aside. And you're going to stretch your arms as wide as they go to each side. We're going to do a mild belly turning pose just to massage the spine. So arms are out to the sides, palms are down. Lift your legs one at a time with the knees staying bent. You're going to join the knees. And this, remember, moves in an L shape. So you're going to want to move sideways and then up like an L. So on an exhale, bring both knees to one side and then pull up toward the shoulder line, and you're going to get out of there the same way, down and over. Exhale, moving to the other side, over and up, L shape, and then down and over. Okay, so keep going like this. If you're able to incorporate the alternate head turn away from the bent knee side, go ahead and do that to complete that twist. But in general, it's just really for massaging. Again, we're not using this to strengthen the core today. It's really about massaging the spine. We'll just try to do one more to each side. And when you come back to center, just pause there and just see if the body's requesting any other movements before final resting pose. Try to meet those needs and then get yourself ready for Shavasana. Today's especially cold, so make sure you're warm enough. We're gonna have a 5-minute Shavasana, so if you have socks, extra clothing, you might wanna put those on. And as you're ready, you'll place yourself in the final relaxation pose. Taking some time to extend the limbs, to lengthen the spine. Once you feel like you've placed yourself well, you'll start to settle the body. Try to soften the skin of your face. Release any tension from your jaw, from your tongue, from your throat. Smoothing out the brow line. And seeing your spine completely in your mind's eye. Running your attention from the brainstem to the tailbone. Signaling the spine to become more fully surrendered. Observing the lungs as they fill and empty on their own. Observing any corresponding movement in the body that comes with the breath. Using the details that are given to us through the sense organs as a way to focus the mind. Sensing the breath as it enters and leaves the nostrils. Sensing the contact points of your body meeting the floor. Eventually, we can withdraw the sense organs and still feel that quietness. When we get quiet, we might sense or imagine the front brain being absorbed by the back brain. Giving all that executive functioning a rest for a few moments. And without inviting any strain, see if you can draw in a few deeper breaths. Exhale a few breaths more completely. Remembering the qualities of smoothness, steadiness, and ease are really the priorities of deeper breathing. And when the time is right, finding your way back to automatic breathing. Bearing witness to that breathing just for a couple moments. And then beginning to invite small, simple movement into the body. Letting it travel from the outermost reaches of your body inwards. Bending knees and elbows. And shifting onto one side of your body. And from this side lying forward bend position, side lying child's pose, come up to seated. And when you're there, just take a few moments with your hands joining in front of your heart. Just to sense what remains. A lot of this practice is about editing and letting go. Just sitting with whatever remains. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. Right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you Friday. Hopefully, come back for more. Have a wonderful day. Bye, you guys.